So welcome to the Node.js Next 10 meeting for April 12th, 2023. We'll follow our standard agenda of going through the issues that were tagged in the issue generated in the repo, which was issue 202. Before we get started, anybody have any announcements that they'd like to share?
Maybe. Oh, go ahead.
You can go first, John.
Just a quick reminder that in a month there will be both the OpenJS and the Collaborator Summit in Vancouver. So for people that are listening and want to join, you can still book your ticket and everything.
That'd be great. And I know we have a couple of sessions, which I think, Claudio, you're working on coordinating the whole thing, so I saw that they were in the draft agenda, which is nice.
Yeah, I tried to put them basically in the beginning of the first day because everybody will be fresh with fresh mind, and since they are, in my opinion, of extreme importance for the project, put some priority there. The only thing that I would mention, it was at least for me a little bit confusing to navigate on the key differences just by having a quick read on the two different issues. For example, the next 10 priorities actually, what are the next technical priorities, and actually revisiting the path. But after reading, a few times, actually made more sense. That's why I made a question, if two issues were the same. Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably a hint for us to go back and look at the title / descriptions. Maybe we can, between now and then, we can fine tune them a bit to make it clear.
Yeah, that'd be great. That's basically the intent I had with this message.
Yeah, it makes sense. Thanks for pointing it out. Any other announcements?
No, the announcement that I had is basically what John mentioned.
Right. We're all looking forward to getting together there, so that's good.
Yeah, that's true. Would be great.
Okay. So yeah, I guess on to the issues on the agenda. So the first one is the metadata proposal for docs. Claudio, do you have any news, updates, things we should discuss on that front?
Yeah, to be fair, I haven't had time to actually have any update because, so recapping, what happened in the last GST meeting that I was attending, the sentiment there in the end felt, at least for me, that it was positive. Then BSC, posted another big message on the issue, and I haven't had time to actually read it yet because I have the feeling that it would take some time actually to reply. So that's on my to-do list to actually, read the message and see if actually what the message is about, if you're just nitpicking a few things here, or just want to get some clarification on, some of the points, or if actually, against, we're proceeding. I'm not sure if Jan also had a time to read the comment. I think I have mentioned with you. If you had time to.
Yeah, I was able to read it, and I would agree with you. Some part is really nitpicking. So I wasn't sure how to answer some of the subtopic. From memory, there was a discussion about how to do a try testing about how it can be involved and how it can be used by people that currently use the current solution without too much, let's say, change in how people are committing and contributing. And for me, of course, it will change a bit. There is a change, so by default, there will be changes, but still, it's a big discussion about, do we want, and the main issue for me, most of the discussion, and I follow this is a discussion between the two TSC meeting and stuff like that, is, do we want to create friction for every new people coming and that need to learn some specific way to work with the documentation? Or do we want to create a one-time friction with current collaborator to change the actual system? Basically, that's a big issue for me. Some of the point where really was a good feedback to have one big file for some people to not have maybe the same definition or one definition being spread across 2 or 3 part of the file or to have an easy access to it, but I think it can be quite easily like with a small script that we can include to be able to just rebuild a one pager for some big feature or stuff like that. It could solve a lot of issue also.
Yeah, I also, of course, what I'm going to say now is just based off gut feeling. Well, I have the feeling it's the kind of case that, yes, for existing contributors, it would be a friction, but the kind of thing that it would be very easy for them to get used with the new system because semantically it's not complex. It is nothing new in terms of language. It's more semantical change in where the YAML is, on the page, let's say, or document. It's like the kind of change that, for example, when I first started to use iPhone with a notch, it got me some time to get used to the notch, but now it just part of it. So I'm not sure if the let's say the example was good, but I think it's more the kind of annoyance that people will get over with it versus actually, again, that's what I actually think that is the problem right now, which is being a blocker for new contributors because it's very complex and confusing for them to understand how those, the current structure for tuning, and also how to run the current tuning, right?
I think for me, like when I read through, I think there's two fundamental questions that are being kind of asked and explored. One is, like, in my mind at least, there is a cost to moving the parameters out of the flow, right? Like if I'm reading through the doc today, the parameters are in the flow. If I want to actually read the doc, I can read the markdown just without anything else, right? So, and if I'm going to have to edit it, I know it's going to be a little bit harder to like edit it above and down below because I'm going to have to be moving back and forth. So I think there is a cost there, like how much. So I think that's a reasonable question to say, like, at least in my mind, that is going to be harder and it's going to take more brain cycles to deal with. And that, like, so having it inline versus out of line, like, just the question is, like, is the cost worth it? So what are we gaining by having it out? And so just making it crisp and clear to say, no, this is really worth it. Like either like, oh, I don't think that's a cost. I'm just saying my opinion is, yeah, I totally understand that cost because I think I'd feel it myself. So it's either like, nah, it's not really a cost, or it's like, yeah, we understand the cost, but it's worth it because we get so many benefits from doing it that cost can be worth it. So that's kind of the one thing. The other comment I think, which may have been a little bit more, I'm not going to say left field, but was like a newer comment, was like, if we're changing things significantly anyway, I think one of the comments was like, would it make any sense to try and choose something which is already a standard like TypeScript? Because it's well documented and used, and like at least some portion of the people will come with that knowledge already, right? Versus making our own format, which is what we've always done. And again, that's like, I can see that comment, right? Like if you can use something that's not our own invention, there's sometimes benefits to that. But again, that can bring with it a whole bunch of other things. I think those are the two things that when I remember reading out of the latest comments.
Going to address two of them. First one, I definitely see the benefit of being able to scroll down the Markdown file and being able to read the content. But there's an actual, that was a misunderstanding here, because on the state that the document is right now, there are a lot of content right now that people cannot see by scrolling the Markdown file, which is, for example, the history table, or the versions, or the edit links, or a lot of things that are already metadata specific. So that's what a thing that Matteo actually suggested, that, well, if we change, move towards, this idea of, having out this part being metadata, which will remove even more of the human readable content as it is, what you see is what you get, right? Hence the idea of having a living version of the API being generated. because then people will not need to navigate through GitHub anymore, which has a nice explorer like GitHub. The way how GitHub allows you to view and see diffs and the blob files improved a lot. Like it's way better. But I would say that by having a living version of the API docs for every field on master would kind of cue the necessity of people to actually need to see the pure markdown file when they want to read the docs, right? That's what I would say.
Sorry, I'm cutting you 5 seconds. Michael, could you maybe promote Rui?
Oh,
he's waiting.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, sorry, but thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah. The second thing about TypeScript, let me just see if we're in the same page. You're saying that instead of having a custom like YAML metadata in the sense, because we're defining our own structure, of how the schema will look like. You're talking about that the definitions will actually be TypeScript types. I was living in the top.
I think that's what that was the suggestion was like. I think what I remember reading is there was a few comments that says like, if we're gonna, since I think it's because like if we're already changing things, type definitions can be quite complex, and we have methods which actually already are, complex, and that they can have like different formats and some of that complexity you can see like TypeScript actually has a bunch of things that try and cope with that. And I think the suggestion was maybe like in trying to reinvent a YAML implementation of that, which seems simple for the simple cases, but when you get into these more complex cases, you'll start to have the same problems. And it's like, then it'll be like, oh, how are we going to do this? And why are we reinventing the wheel where they're already doing it with TypeScript, right? And so maybe adopting TypeScript is the way to define the parameters. Makes sense because they've already dealt with a bunch of those things. If you know TypeScript, you don't have to learn something new. And it's like, so yeah, that's like, I don't think anybody had mentioned that before, but it's kind of like,
it sounds like a
crazy,
very,
right?
Not crazy at all.
Yeah.
I still see that for certain things, we still need a YAML metadata, which is for the history table. Like
I think this was just the parameters.
For the parameters, yeah. For example, if we want to talk about the parameters, the type definitions itself, I can see the benefit of TypeScript, and I can see in that way we can even do inline, like if we immediately after the heading, for example, we have heading, I don't know, name of the method. Then immediately after we have, the type definition of it, a code block, the tooling could be smart enough to try to extract that, right? If, for example, we need to have actually human readable comments, for example, description of what each parameter is, we can just extract, for example, inline comments. So for example, you have, I don't know, name of class, then you have methods, and then on the end of the line, inline comment description.
Yeah, TypeScript might extract some way to do that.
Not TypeScript itself, but it's basically just regular code block, right? Yeah, so you just have inline code blocks, and then the tooling can extract that. That would be helpful for if a person wants to read it on as it is, as a markdown file, because they will not depend on the build version by the tooling. I'm aware that there is tooling out there to transform TypeScript definitions in JSON objects. So we can definitely extract, for example, the raw, code block with the type definitions and transform it in, for example, the metadata that we need, then after all process it and transform in the resulting content that we will see in the HTML page. So it's not crazy at all. It just how people would feel about that, and having that suggestion is something, of course, that I will need to, hammer a little bit in my head and see how feasible that would be. But it sounds like a good idea, just need to check if it handles all the corner cases. And, and still we can also still benefit from ESLint. So for example, we can even create rules of how the people should, define those types, so I can definitely see the benefits there, and it's already a standard because TypeScript, everybody's familiar with. Not shag at all. I like the idea.
So yeah, I think so that was the two things. So like you said, I think some more thought to address those comments. And I don't know, would that address the inline part as well? Like it would be easier to have inline TypeScript than
Yeah, pretty
okay.
much
So maybe that handles the two main comments right off the bat there.
Yeah. Yes, we would still need metadata on the top,
sure,
which is for the things that we cannot do with TypeScript, which is pretty much just, for example, the stability index, the history table, the source link, those little things we would still need to define on top. But pretty much those will not be as touched as much as, for example, the actual definition. So yeah. That's pretty much everything I had to say.
Okay.
Just put a
okay. So that sounds good. Okay, so just continue to work on very complex, like any change like that. Thanks for being persistent and to continue to push it, because I know there's been lots of comments, but I know you're going to put a lot of work into it once we get agreement, so it's good to work through all these things along the way before doing that.
Yeah, I know for sure, because, for example, well, if we started right now already with the initial revision of having all the YAML on the top, then just decide to switch TypeScript, it will be day and night of difference on how the tooling would work, right? So completely different requirements. So I don't mind at all having this whole initiative take more time, but allowing us to mature it, and have a better version that actually really attends to other needs that our contributors have right now. That still allows newcomers to have not a rough time in contributing with documentation.
Sounds good. Okay, so the next issue is review easy retros from Club Summit and do updates as appropriate. I think, Jean, you had a PR.
Yes, and I opened it like 2 minutes ago.
Okay, what can you just paste the link in the chat? I'll add it to the minutes.
Yeah, I put it at the draft one. There is still some minor changes to do. Let me Austin Penny is here. And I will also put it on the other part. Yep.
I just added it to the minutes.
Oh,
that's
great.
good.
You are faster than me.
Okay, so that's great. We'll maybe, unless there's something you think we should discuss there, we can just leave that for people to go take a look and discuss.
Yeah, there's not a lot of things. Like most of the priorities are almost the same as last year. So I reuse some of the text. The two, let's say, I think 3 major changes are serverless, the serverless part, the small footprint part, and also the developer first developer experience.
Okay.
So the other part, like it's still linked to WebAssembly documentation, modern HTTP. It's almost the same for the other part. So not a lot of change. It's really linked to, yes, I would guess serverless. And we still have our, let's say, I would guess major issue like ESM, ESM module and CommonJS that we maybe one day should try as a whole, not just Node.js, but as a whole community. What do we want to do? I know the official standard is ESM linked by done by the ECMAScript. Like everyone from the ECMAScript, main issue is even today, like it's been years that ESM is not the official standard, but we still have issue using it. It's not, you also have issue if you want to work on observability on some part. There is some stuff that you cannot do anymore if you use and rely only on ESM. So I think it could be a great question for maybe us in Node.js, but also a global feedback to the ECMAScript community or some other people. What do we want to do and what are the core features that are missing? And because it's not just one is better than the other one, is we are lacking features, basically.
The interesting, like the way you added it as a like and left the old one there. I'm wondering if that's what we want to do, or do we want to just actually like have the changes? Because
Yes,
we'll have the history in Git anyway.
I was thinking the same. Also, I wasn't sure. So I put it that way, but I just can remove the other line and it will be fine. So like, it's up to you which one you do prefer from everyone here, and I can update it just after the meeting.
I think my take would be to be like, yeah, just have it reflect what the current version is, because I think that might be a little bit more, here's
Okay.
the priorities. It'll also, you know, it might be that like, say, single executable applications can still stay in the list, right? It's more
Yes.
like we remove or add, and anyway,
Yeah.
that's my
Also,
take anyway.
okay, yeah, would agree with you. Should we also, I was also wondering, should we keep maybe in parentheses or stuff like that for each part, if it's a new priority, or if it was existing before, to easily see recurring topics and new topics.
Yeah, like I think actually maybe an added might be kind of interesting.
Okay.
Right, like added in 2022 or something like that. I don't know what other people think, but that might be an interesting to see. Okay, yeah, this has been a priority for quite a while.
Yeah,
Or this is a new one.
I was going like just below each subtitle, just to add some was also existing in and just a year, like an array of years, something like that. So I would do a proposition. You will be able to review it, and we can change it.
Sounds good. Anything more we want to discuss on that one?
That seems good to me.
Okay, visualization of technical priorities.
I
You
think
were
this
leading
one
that
was no change on this one. We kept it open to be able to present, like to remember to show it during the collaborator summit, I think.
Right, yeah, okay.
I will maybe try to update and find another way, a more visible way to present it, but it will basically stay the same. Example, I will need to push a few example. I wasn't able to see Tierney, but I will just basically push some example and we'll tag him and see if he's available or not.
Yeah, and I think again, like, and if not, then maybe, you know, you can offer to take over in terms of maintaining, right?
Okay, yeah, perfect.
I-18N initiative documentation.
I think this one is really paused for now, because it will mostly be linked to what I think we have mostly two topics here. First one is what we want to do for this part, because one of the, let's say, big discussion linked to the documentation during the TSC meeting was we don't want, or we don't have the manpower to work on an official translation for everything. But I saw the new, I don't know if I should call that a new initiative, but at least the initiative of using Crowdin again, and it was restarted like a few weeks ago. I'm having email on a lot of topic and stuff like that, and people translating part of documentation and website, I guess. I didn't check everything and what was included, but maybe we'll rely on Crowdin then. I wasn't able, I don't know if you were able to like dip a bit on this topic. I'm not sure which part is included or not.
I think, sorry, Augustin has his hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, for Crowdin, I use for website. Normally on Crowdin for doc, there are no news. It's still like before, but website are used for new content, translate content, just that.
Okay, so it's for the website part only currently.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
Okay.
think like the discussion in the proposal for the API docs was, you know, the even like the non-English speakers were like saying that the translated API docs are often not even like not just not helpful, but actively not good. And so they, you know, there wasn't much support for doing that. And I think that was pulled from what Claudio's been working on. So it's kind of like, I think the feeling was like, yeah, the translation for the website, but for the API docs themselves, it wasn't something that, you know, people would want to like make things harder for the project or anything like that.
Yes, I would agree, and I would agree with the discussion if it was like 100% maintained by Node.js itself. I think like a lot of other framework and technology, like most of the key technology do have a translation in at least 7 to 10 languages. I would guess a primary one. From Java to PHP to MDM for JavaScript, for even like most of the documentation for every big cloud provider is also translated. So not having that, and I know it could be some work, and I know it's not perfect. I agree 100% just because translating some English keyword or technical keyword in another language than English like lose most of the sense. But still, for like English is not the primary language for most of the people in the world. Like it's minority of people are talking English, able to speak English. So I don't know if it should be. I'm not really sure that we shouldn't work at least a bit on that and find a way to, as a community, to be involved, like other languages and everything. Like MDM, for example, I use it in English by habit, but the French version is pretty good also. And I guess it's also the same in other languages because you have like people from the community that try to maintain it, keep it right with multiple rules on translation, keyword that are already translated and reused. So I'm not really sure, but I think it could be great also for the global adoption on everything, to also for people like in school, university, stuff like that. I do like computer science, programming could be also nice to have that. And so, yes, basically, that's my point.
So what should we do with this? I was thinking that we were going to agree to close it for now based on that feedback on the API docs, but now I'm not quite sure.
I would guess the main issue main topic is, are people against doing translation because it's too much work or the quality is bad, or because of the reason? Because if it's just trusting the community, I would guess that having some, I don't know, local country champion for each language, like you can find that currently with some of the translation being done in Crowdin, you have a lot of people. I think Turkish people, there is a lot of Turkish people involved in the website, from a few tweets also from Yagi's on about the translation team, and other country does have way less people being involved. So I guess it really depends, but I think it's something we should try to keep and see if we want to block it or find a way to allow the community to work on it.
So Roy has his hand up.
Yeah. So, yeah, I remember from the last collaborator summit, there was some pushback on the idea for the docs, right? Specifically. Yep. Yeah, and I think, but on the other hand, I hear you, and I have the impression like that you're willing to kind of champion this thing, and I mean like that's also kind of like, you know, in a big way like how we do things in the project. Like I think as long as you spearhead it, you're championing this, and like I think we, you know, like I think it can just happen. But at the same time, I would advise that we kind of like, we set up goals, right? Like, okay, we're not going to publish this and tell the public like that this is, you know, like the French version of the docs is supported until we have, let's say, 80-90% of the docs translated and a team of, you know, 1, 2, 3 collaborators that can, you know, review stuff and like fix things, right? So I think as long as, you know, it has a champion like you, right, and it has like tangible goals, right, like I think there's nothing preventing it. I mean, like, because when we were just discussing, you know, like in the idea land of that we were last time in the collaborators summit, people were more like, oh, no, let's not bother, right? But I think if we find champions for, you know, every language that we want, that eventually like there is interest in supporting, I think it's feasible from my opinion. But yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts too.
So I'd agree there's, you know, if there's people who want to do it, I don't think the project's going to get in the way of that. However, like in the proposal for the metadata for docs, initially that included like pulling out some metadata to make translation easier. There definitely wasn't support for that because it would be like, there's going to be more work for people writing the initial docs. And the feedback was from the TSC members was like, you know, we haven't seen that work in terms of like the cost that we would have to put in terms of externalizing that. There just wasn't support for that extra cost. So I think like the current proposal for metadata for docs has that all removed. So, but if it's possible to translate the docs without that, nobody's going to say, oh, stop translating them, right? It's more just that we're not necessarily going to, there's not a lot of appetite for incurring extra cost to the project, to the regular flow of the project to do that, I guess is where we're at currently. You know, not because nobody wants to have it, it's partially because, you know, there is a cost along with the impression that, you know, people have not seen good docs that have actually hit versus hurt when they were ramping up in the language. So it makes that combination makes it harder to sell it, right?
Yeah. It would be a great, I don't know if some of you have contact of people working for MDM or stuff like that, but could be interesting to have some feedback of like number of visit for, I don't know, French, Spanish, and different languages to see if it's really like less than 1% of it's still a good amount of visit of people using a regional language and not the English version. So I don't know anyone working on it. I don't know if you have contact or know people, but that could be great.
Yeah, I think Nick, if you see who is work on MDN doc, so you can send a small message.
Okay. Okay, I will ping him like, and I will try to see if he got some feedback on that or some information. But
Who is that?
great.
Nick, work on a website, singly executable, and I don't know other.
Okay.
Nick, no, I don't want to hurt his name.
Right. One more point, Jean, that you might want to highlight or keep in mind is like the project is also onboarding more collaborators, right? Like, so there can be like a pool of fresh people that are, you know, willing to put that work for their specific languages, right? Like, so I don't know. Yeah, things like also worth keeping in mind. Like there may actually have more collaborators that are interested in seeing that happening.
Okay, so I mean, I think we're like, it's more like what would the next concrete actions be at this point, right? Versus as Roy says, if there's somebody who's going to champion stuff, I don't think anybody's going to say stop. Just might be harder because like the docs themselves won't necessarily have like keys to translate or whatever, but that doesn't necessarily mean it can't be done.
Yeah. I will try for the next meeting, or I guess the next meeting will be the collaborators summit.
I think
on
we
that.
have another one on the 26th.
Yeah, just a week
Oh.
before.
Okay.
I will try to have some data on other like documentation being translated, and if there is people using the translated version, if there is contributor doing the work, like external contributor for the community, I will try to find that, and I will try also to finalize a way that we can work on Node.js for that to not have everything bloating the main repository.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah,
Yeah, and you mentioned the next meeting is right before the Collaborator Summit. Maybe we should use that to go through like any slides or agenda that we have for the two sessions.
Yes,
Makes
would be
sense to
great.
people. Because
Yep.
we should probably put, I think, Jean, you and I should probably get together, put together some outlines or, you know, something to get the conversation, what we want to
Yes.
cover. And then we
Yep.
could actually get then more input that next meeting and sort of fine tune there.
Looks good.
Okay.
yeah.
For the next 10 survey, I guess the good news is the foundation is you know moving that forward. There's actually like a draft survey that we can try out. The link went to. I tried it out and made a few comments, but otherwise I think it looks really good. I don't know if anybody else has looked at it and made any feedback.
I saw the comment. I have it open somewhere on one of my tab, but I didn't like tried it yet.
Yeah, you can go through, like it basically says, hey, you can go through the survey and answer the questions. It just doesn't capture any data or anything, so you can give it a shot and see how it flows. I just, my only suggestions were like, hey, let's flip these questions to like multi-select versus single select.
Yep.
And Kylie turned that around like within a half an hour, and now it's like that. So we can basically see, hey, does this flow? Do we want to tweak it and all that? And I think though, she might have said, it might have been the deadline was the 14th to comment, because we want to get it out and have it run for a couple weeks at least before the you know, before the collaborator summit, and as well as giving a week for tabulation and all that. So I think there's only a couple more days to go through and comment. Pretty quick though, so.
Okay, then I will check that today and like provide comment, and I will also maybe tag, because I saw you validated the PR I did on the updated survey. So I will also ask if it's possible to add one or two question, but
Yep.
That should be all. Great.
Yeah, it's I would, you know, you can read through. There wasn't, you know, they took what we'd started with and tweaked some things and stuff. So it's not exactly the same, but I think it covers. I did a cross check against what we had, and it covered most things. So, but yeah, if you can cross check against your changes, that would be perfect.
I will do that.
But yeah, definitely good to get that in, because I think the sooner we can open it up, the more responses we'll get and all that. So that's good.
Yep.
And a big thanks to Kylie for helping us with that. It's looking nice. The next one, create communication channels to JS newsletters, PR articles. That's actually landed. In terms of the PR that we had open to document the process. So now the next step is to, I think, do some promotion on the working groups to ask if they want to participate, create an issue, as well as to create the issue in the node repo. So that's really the next step. And, you know, I think we want to do that just to see if we can get a few more teams. There's one team who's using it so far. If we could get another team or two, you know, maybe even our team, we can open up an issue, which is like news we want to share, that kind of stuff, and have a few more of those. And then, you know, we can start to reach out to the individual periodicals.
Yep, that's great. I think the performance team would be keen to work on that also. I spoke a bit with Yagis outside of the Node.js organization. So yes, I think would be great. I would guess that a Node API team is also like willing, because you already have that, I think, in the Node
Yeah,
API.
like that's the one in the example, like it's already there, because we started that this year. And so Node API, let's actually, why don't we go through, we've got enough time here. So like Jean, you'll reach out to the performance team.
Yep, I will do the performance team. I think could be great to have one also for us in the next 10.
Sounds good. Do you want to create that one?
I will create it. Yep. No issue.
For our next 10 team. I'm gonna say I'll open up. Michael will open for Node Core. And I'll also reach out, I'll ask the UV Wazi team, because I think we have a meeting scheduled today or tomorrow.
Great.
What other teams do we think we should reach out to / have volunteers to do the reaching out? I don't know, Augustin, you're pretty involved in the website team. Does that make any sense in terms of like project news or? Not sure.
Sorry, I don't understand what you're saying.
We're work like this is an effort to try and get like to be able to flow project news into the community periodicals, like and make it easier for the consumer. So the approach is like each team can open an issue, which is like news. And so if there's some news you'd want to share, you can post it there. And then we're going to like encourage some of these periodicals to go look at those and then use it as a source for news, right? Meant to be a really lightweight way for teams to just like post something in an issue. And now you've got, potentially that being published. So we're at the point of saying like, okay, what teams wanted, share news that way. And so I don't know if the website one makes sense. Like, it's not a functional thing. Like the build one, I'm not sure we really are going to like, the build team, it's like, well, people are not necessarily going to say, or like the Node Weekly isn't going to necessarily publish, hey, the build team did and added new machines, right? Like versus, hey, Node API published a new version, right? That I can see them. So it's kind of does it fit with the team? And I was just wondering about the website team. I'm not sure or not. But
on the website redesign, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. On the website redesign, we just redesigned the blog. We have a possibility to add symbol like small pictures, but not really have communication for notification, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I would guess also, I was going to say, maybe Rui, you could reach out also to the release team, but you already publish every time there is a release or something like that. So I don't know if it makes sense for you to have like double the workload to do something, because it will basically be the same thing as a normal tweet, except if you see some different that you are not showing or displaying when you release something, and that could be a good follow-up. I don't know.
I think the releases are pretty well covered.
Yeah,
people pick those up. So I wouldn't ask for anything else on that front. I'm more like, there's some interesting project news, like the Node API new version, or if I don't know about the tooling team or performance, I think for sure, like there's been a lot of activity there. So I can see that being
I can reach out to the SEA team, SEA.
Yeah, okay.
Executable something.
Yeah, so I guess, any other teams come to mind that are good candidates? We don't need to do them all right now, right? Like it's obviously people can opt in anytime.
One that could be great, because like, I guess a lot of people were wondering and wanted to know, like the diagnostic team.
Right, okay.
Because lately they did release a new diagnostic something. I didn't read everything about it, but the diagnostic channel, so could be great. Maybe they're willing to work on having that published also a bit.
Yeah, no, that's a good one. Yeah, I can reach out to them. I guess also the security team.
Yep.
I can reach out to them. I'll probably just like in one of the upcoming meetings, if it's soon, do that. Otherwise, I can open an issue in the repos or whatever. Okay. Well, I think that's a good number. We're covering, like, Sean, you're going to reach out to 3 teams. I'm going to reach out to 3 teams. And if there's any other teams that people are part of, just tag it into I'm going to put that in the issue itself. Just so there's okay. Oops, that did not. It's not gonna give me the bulletin. Okay, that's better. Okay, so that's good. We're making progress on that one, and that actually takes us to the end of the agenda. I think I saw Augustine. Did you have your hand up?
Yeah, just a small proposal. Now for communicate, we use your blog on Node.js.org. So why do you think about using social network like Instagram or other things? I don't know all of social network.
It's basically, yeah, one of the key discussion was like, it was a start of the discussion. If you want to have the full historic, I think you can go back through this open issue. And one of the main topic is we don't want also to basically first send too much messages, and also the only, I guess, network that we are currently using would be Twitter. And are we still using Mastodon or not?
I think the
I know
foundation,
we
the
have an account.
foundation definitely created a Mastodon account and posts
Yep.
stuff there. The foundation doesn't post a lot about what's going on in the project, though. I mean, I think the feedback I've gotten is really it's all about end users. They don't think that people will be interested on the node handle. Not sure I agree, but we've delegated them running what gets posted there. So I think this is a good step to promote things, but it's not, so it doesn't address the social side. So certainly having people promote what's going on in the project on social is good. But it is a fair amount of work, right? Like, that's where there's sort of that balance saying, I promote, like, say these meetings. But with extra work, we could have those reach a much bigger audience. It's just the amount of work to do that is not trivial necessarily.
Yeah.
But if somebody actually started reading these things from the teams and systematically posting them and tweeting them, or amplifying, what I really like to get to is the point where we amplify the tweets from the collaborators, right? Like, I make a tweet for each of the meetings, but like, instead of having somebody separately promote it, would be nice to have those retweeted. Similarly, if somebody like on the performance team is doing work, I think promote like retweeting their tweets. In terms of the work that they've done is the best way to kind of amplify and highlight the work of the collaborators in the project, right? But that is a lot of work to look for those, retweet them, that kind of stuff. But I guess, we're running out of time, but I will say, I think that's a very interesting topic. And like, in terms of social amplification of what's going on in the project itself, it's an interesting topic to me, because I don't think we're getting a lot of that right now, right? And it'd be interesting to figure out how to increase that.
Yep.
And it is different than this. This is like, hey, we were looking at communication channels. How do we make it easier for those newsletters and periodicals to promote some stuff for us? And then how do we do that through social? It could be a whole nother sort of aspect to that.
Sounds good.
So if somebody wanted to open an issue, discuss that. That might be interesting. So we've got 4 minutes. Any other topics? So Augustine, your hands up.
Yeah, I have forgot one thing about internationalization of Duck. Alexander Tovmash, if you see who is, have started to work on translation, but I don't know what. It's a long time ago on it is written repo. If you go, you can see they are fetching a script to fetch the API and a script to put the translation, but I don't know if it's work. If people do that are available. So you can take a look like if you want, I can share my screen.
What do you have the link or something?
Yeah, it's here. There's a link of one of script used to put file on ChromeDin. And here the collect script to collect the file from Node.js core repo.
So is that's in Node itself?
No,
Sorry?
it's part of the Node.js i18n.
Right. Okay.
repository.
Yeah, I saw a Node in
So it's really a custom script, I guess, to get every Markdown file and do some. Yeah, okay. Basically, it goes through each Markdown file, and based on your local language or any Node version you want to work with, it seems to generate or to keep only the right pages.
That's really tinkered things, but I think we can just discuss with Alexander Tovmash to know what is done on that.
Okay, so maybe we can take that back to the issue since we only have we're almost pretty much at time.
No, I would agree. We can take, yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for everybody's time and everybody who's watching on the live stream, and we will see you in GitHub.